Hi, good evening, and welcome to Coffee with Keith. My name is Amy Gruber, and I'm the Director of Enrollment and Marketing at TASIS Portugal. As always, it is my pleasure to introduce our headmaster, Keith Chiquin, and his special guest tonight, whom he will introduce in just a moment. We're changing the order just a little bit tonight, so Keith will offer his usual sage remarks at the end of the webinar instead of at the beginning. So please listen carefully to all of our guests and submit questions that you have, and I will curate those questions for our guests tonight, Helen Iglar, John Iglar, Natalia Lopez, and Katerina Frias to answer before Keith finishes us off. So thank you for joining us, and I know you'll really enjoy hearing about the violin program, the coding program, and the chess program here at TASIS Portugal. Over to you, Keith.
All right, good evening. Welcome back to Coffee with Keith, the final refuge of those truly bored and locked in captivity. You'll want to mute your microphone, Natalia. Tonight, during episode 25, we welcome some of our specialty teachers. Now, specialty teachers are like specialty drinks in that they're so sweet you can only handle 4 in one night. And we have brought the sweetness tonight. My teeth ache just thinking about these gifted teachers. We have the logicians and the musicians, the coders and the chorders, the instrumentalists and the incrementalists, those who play with pawns and those who play with their palms, those who move knights and those who play Fortnite. Okay, enough of that. Let's begin, shall we? John Iglar, the second least young person at TASIS, although far from the most mature. John teaches math and coding with over 25 years experience as a teacher, coach, administrator in international and American schools. John holds a master's in education and educational leadership from the College of New Jersey, which is in Mallorca, Spain, a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts. John has taught mathematics, computer science, programming, robotics in the US, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Indonesia, and Portugal. His first country that does not end in the letter A. All right. Of course, John's strategic partner and wife, Helen, taught him everything he knows. Helen is our TASIS chess teacher. Helen earned her BA and MA degrees and her teaching certification, all from Oxford University, which is in New Jersey. Sorry, no, it's in the UK. Helen has enjoyed a career in teaching in international schools in Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Indonesia, and Ethiopia for over 20 years. And some of those she enjoyed with her husband, John. Some she enjoyed less. Hailing from Chile, and in fact, it's probably hailing in Chile, Natalia Lopez was born into a family of musicians. It sounds like a very noisy entry into the world. Natalia earned her Bachelor of Music in Violin from the Federal University of Paraíba, Brazil, and her Master's in Music and Violin Performance from the Eastman School of Music in the United States. She served as an assistant chief in second violins for the Chilean National Symphony Orchestra. I'm having a tough night. Let me repeat that. Natalia served as an assistant chief in second violins for the Chilean National Symphony Orchestra for 20 years, as well as teaching in private schools in Chile. By the way, assistant chief sounds like my title at home. Natalia also teaches Spanish and Spanish and violin at TASIS, one of our double specialists. And speaking of double specialists, Katerina Frias, born and raised in Lisbon. Katerina attended the German School of Lisbon. Then she studied chemical engineering at the Instituto Superior Técnico and viola at the National Conservatory. She has been teaching violin and viola for more than 20 years. Parallel to her musical activity.
Excuse me, Keith, I think it's pronounced viola. Is that right, Katerina?
Oh,
Yes.
that's viola, sorry.
Oh.
Thank you, Amy. To be corrected. Parallel to her musical activity, Katerina has worked as a tutor in math, physics, and chemistry, and as a translator in math, physics, and chemistry. Katerina is also our German teacher, and she teaches German, making her a double special as well. By the way, people occasionally get Natalia and Katerina mixed up, so remember, Katerina is the one with dark hair. Viola, by the way, and I am now pronouncing it correctly, viola is what you get if you leave a cello and a violin in a room unsupervised. So let's meet these specialists and ask them some tough questions, shall we? Ready for the first tough question? John Iglar, what is the square root of 2,209?
The square root of 2,209 is 47.
Wrong. Oh, I'm being told he's right. Okay, well done. You've managed the first tough question, John. Let's find out about coding. So tell me, because I often refer to coding as the new Latin. 100 years ago, all educated people learned Latin, and today it's critical for our students to understand coding. Talk about the importance of coding, please, in today's world.
Sure, and I think that's a good analogy for a couple of things. I mean, Latin, people learned Latin not necessarily because it was going to be a practical purpose for them, but because they really got a good understanding of how language is structured and how it works. With coding, we do have a very practical purpose for that, but even though some students may not become programmers or software developers, by understanding and learning the language of coding, they really get to understand not only how computers work, but also a really good way of solving problems. The other good analogy and a reason why we study coding in schools is because Latin was the language of the elites. And really, in our modern society, there's been a progression. You know, when we first developed language, when we first had written language, everybody read books and only the elites were actually able to read. And then we had printing presses and everybody started being able to read, but the elites were the ones who wrote the books. Now we have computers and the internet, and everybody can write, can post blogs and post on social media, etc. But the elites are the ones who know how these things work, how the computers work, how to get them to do what they want them to do. So by giving our students that kind of experience of learning how computers works and how they can make them do what they want to do, they're prepared to get into the role of the elite of our world.
Interesting, John. Thank you. Great answer. You throw around analogies like you're an English professor, and I appreciate your modesty in referring to yourself as an elite. While we're on coding, John, please, what is the benefit of having coding, and specifically having coding in the elementary school program?
Sure. Well, you know, there's a couple of different things. I mean, one, coding is a really challenging process. As anybody who may have seen gags about programmers, or any people in our audience who are programmers, it's difficult. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of problems. And that sort of process, to get through that, you really need a lot of persistence, which is something we want with our students as well too. And they're able to do that really well with programming and coding because it's fun. You know, we get to make things and build things and make games and things. It's fun, but it's hard fun. So it's a real challenge. But when they do that, when they stick with that and they show that persistence and they get something working, there's a real sense of agency that students who, when they're coding, when they get a computer, which is one of the most complicated devices around, when they get it to do what they want it to do, it's like they're able to fly an airplane or pilot a submarine or operate a nuclear reactor. They're working with really powerful devices that they're in control of. And that's a really powerful skill to give our students.
Interesting, John. I thought nuclear reactors was a middle school subject, but well done.
Well, you know, we start introducing it in upper elementary.
Ah, yes. John, you said coding, correct me if I'm wrong, you said coding is frustrating, difficult, and full of problems. How has marriage helped you to teach coding?
Not at all. The marriage has been perfect.
While you're lying, John, can you talk about the curricular standards you follow in coding?
Sure. Changing the subject, transitioning over to the curriculum standards. We are drawing on a number of different things, and we recognize there's a lot of really good programs out there. The United Kingdom has an excellent national curriculum that involves computer science and computing throughout the curriculum. We use that, but we're more closely aligned to the CSTA standards, the Computer Science Teachers Association standards. And these have been developed and adapted over the years to apply for kindergarten through 12th grade, leading up to university preparation as need be. And it focuses not just on the coding, but also on some of the hardware aspects of how computers function, networks and how they're put together, and data analysis. Obviously in a progressive way, so that at the younger grades we're just kind of starting to introduce some of these ideas and topics, but we get into greater depth as we go up. And then of course algorithms and programming is there, and the social impacts of computing and how it affects our society is something we look at throughout that. So those are the strands of the standards that we focus on.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, but coding, and don't correct me by the way, coding is a tool, and you can use it to do some cool and fun things like robotics. And
yes,
do students get into robotics at all?
Sure, of course. We have robotics as an after-school activity for various ages, and we're also using it within the curriculum as well too. There's a really good link between using that robotics, which is a hands-on concrete activity where students can do physical computing using a robot, and then moving on to a pictorial programming tool like we use with the younger students in Scratch and Scratch Junior. And then finally getting into the abstract of the text-based languages like Python, which we're doing with 6th and 7th graders. That mimics really well the curriculum of our Singapore math curriculum, which has the same sort of progression where we start with concrete, move up higher into abstract. So yes, so we do a robotics, and that's another aspect. And again, also the other aspect that I want to emphasize too, as talking about the standards, is it's not just a skill of coding, but it's a way of thinking and a way of problem solving. The technical term is computational thinking, which doesn't mean we want the students to think like a computer, but we want them to think in a problem solving way that they can use computers as a tool to solve different problems through robotics or in other areas, whether it's designing something or doing mathematical programs, etc.
Okay, I was going to actually ask you that question, so I'm glad you've answered it, John. And I'm going to ask that question of Helen and of Katerina and Natalia at some point later. But we talk about not just creating educated people, but one of the goals of our school and our specific goals of our curriculum is to create better thinkers. So we have visible thinking routines that get young people to start thinking about their thinking, but also to become more organized, strategic thinkers. And I think you touched on that already, John, but in your belief, coding helps young people to become better problem solvers and better cognitive thinkers.
Exactly. In order to build a program, the kind of thinking skills that a programmer needs to have is a logical problem solving technique and tactics that can apply in a lot of different areas. They need to take a big problem and deconstruct it down into smaller parts. They need to come up with an algorithm for step by step of how they're going to solve a problem. And then they need to test it, make sure it works, and iterate it, increase and improve it every time they work on it. It's all about problem solving and overcoming those difficulties we talked about, it, where things can be frustrating when you're writing a program. So the thinking skill is really at the heart of the program. We don't want to develop professional Python programmers. We want to develop students who can think and solve and use a programming language to solve a variety of different problems.
All right, well, thank you, John. That was very interesting, and that's not something I usually say after talking to a computer geek, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Interestingly, my son is learning coding at university, and he called me the other night to get some help with a math problem, as probably I unfortunately reminded him I have a degree in mathematics many decades ago. And so it was a Boolean algebra problem, and I had absolutely no recollection of it, and it was useless, which is pretty much what my kids say to me anyway. All right, we're going to move on. Helen, if you're ready, we are going to talk about chess, and specifically, what is the benefit of having a chess program in an elementary school?
Well, thank you, Keith. That's a great question that I've been asked before, and there are extensive answers. Chess is more than a game. Chess is a sport. It's an art. It's a science. It's a pastime. It's a challenge, but it's also a discipline. And a discipline is not something that one masters without perseverance, without persistence, without practice, and without being taught. And yes, chess is a game. It's a worldwide game. That's one of the wonderful things about it. It's affordable. It's accessible. It's not age-based. A young child can play happily with a parent or grandparent. And so it's a known entity, and if we teach our young children to play, it's a pleasure that they can have for their lives, and they can bring it into their homes. But why teach it in school? Well, because of some of the reasons I've mentioned, but chess studies show very, very decisively that it does raise IQ skills in children. It raises reading skills, reading comprehension skills, mathematically, visual awareness, spatial awareness, memory, concentration, problem solving, creative thinking. Chess addresses all of these, and problem solving is a great one because every single move that a chess player makes is solving a myriad of problems. And when I teach chess, I teach the young children to understand principles behind moves rather than just learning moves off by heart. Some people do learn openings off by heart, but the minute that your opponent throws a move at you that you weren't expecting, you're lost unless you understand the reason, what makes a strong opening, why are you making those moves. And so the brain is solving many, many problems simultaneously, and every time you're thrown a new challenge, you're back to square one of problem solving. So in problem solving in chess, the themes are constant, but every single problem is you're facing a new challenge. So children, without even knowing that they're doing that, are developing those skills. They're having fun, they're relaxed, they're usually enjoying themselves playing a game, as they call it. But underneath all that, there is intense learning going on.
Great answer. Thank you, Helen. Helen, I got one more question for you. What does a typical chess class look like in first grade?
Oh, that's a good question, Keith. First grade chess is a lot of fun. It would defy most of you actually if you saw it, because we are dancing, we are singing, we're storytelling, we are enacting. I'll start it from the very beginning. We have a warm-up that we start with in kindergarten and grade 1 and even grade 2 sometimes, because they love it too, where we do chess exercises. And any parents watching this who've got young children at home at the moment, you'll know what these chess exercises look like, where we actually act out the pieces, the king, the queen, the bishop, the knight, the rook and the pawn, and we have moves for all of them, and we stand up and we do those stretches and warm up into the lesson. The children then take turns doing it, leading the class in that. They love that. This way they're not just stretching, they're not just exercising, but they're repeating the names of the pieces, so they're very, very familiar with them, and they're focusing, because then we mix it up and we don't do it in order, and they're not able to keep up with us unless they're actually very attentive and watching. So that's the warm-up. We're using a storytime chess program with the young students as well, and this is a developmental program created for children under the age of 7, where we're teaching chess by telling creative, engaging stories. The characters are wacky and very, very memorable, and each of the characters relates to a piece on the chessboard. By connecting the characters in the story to the pieces on the chessboard, the students can recall the moves, and not just the moves, but why a piece makes that move. For example, if a king is so timid and so terrified that he has to walk in tiny little tiptoes around his palace. That's why kings move one step at a time. So they're learning these wonderful rules through these stories. So that's typically the second part of the lesson. Then while we do a demonstration on the chessboard, showing what the moves that they've done, connecting the story to the chessboard, and the students could easily be dancing around the room, galloping like a knight, running like a bishop, capturing each other like a pawn. There are little songs and rhymes that they've learned to remember some of those moves, such as when a pawn meets another pawn and gets blocked, or when a pawn captures. And so the children are actively engaged in the lesson. They're singing, they're dancing, they're walking, they're moving, they're stretching, and then of course they're playing on the chessboard. When we were in school, we were usually going out to the chessboard out in the playground and playing, we were the live chess pieces. These days we're not doing that so much, but we can play mini games then, where the students are learning about, they're putting what they've learned into action immediately, not by playing full chess, that will come, but by laying down the foundations. First they're playing with the pawns, and then they'll bring in the pawns and the rooks, then they'll bring in the pawns and the bishops. And so they're reinforcing their new knowledge by playing mini games that only take about 5 minutes, but they're learning how to take turns in chess, they're learning how to listen to each other, watch each other. Impulse control, discipline and concentration are all coming slowly in a very developmental way.
Wow, well, that's an outstanding vision of the school. I've actually watched your class with grade ones, and the kids are just enthralled. So thank you for that, Helen. I have one more quick question, though, about chess, but it's for John, because we've all seen the show The Queen's Gambit. So, John, is it chess that makes people crazy, or is it crazy people that play chess? Which one is that? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that. All right.
Well, Helen must be crazy. She married me.
Yeah, there you go. Good answer. Moving on to our violin teachers. Did I pronounce that right, Amy? Violin. Natalia?
You nailed it, Keith. Very good.
Thank you, dear. Let's let you decide which of these questions you want to answer, but I'm going to start with the first one, which is, your teaching role at TASIS Portugal is unique. How would you describe it?
Oh, that's a great question. Hello, everybody. I would like that question. Well, I love my role here at TASIS because as a musician, classical one, in my life, actually my entire life, this is the very first school that has violin in the curriculum. So other schools, that I've taught in, they have violin as an extracurricular, right? So here, every single child that comes to TASIS, they get to learn violin as math, as coding, as history, geography, Portuguese, English, all other classes. So I feel very proud to be here, actually, because this is my very first time in various years as a musician that I'm doing this, and gladly, yes.
Thank you, Natalia. Katerina, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
You're muted.
Katerina, I think you're muted.
Yep.
Okay.
No. I have the same experience as Natalia. It's something very special to have violin in the curriculum, especially for younger children, because it's an opportunity to develop many skills that will be useful for all their lives. So it's something very unique to have the violin in the curriculum in a school in the early ages.
Good, thank you. Great answer. Now, Katerina, this one is for you.
Okay.
Is it true that your nickname for Natalia is the bossy one. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I did see her muting your microphone. I have to tell you that. Okay. Maybe, Katerina, talk us through which method you use to teach violin.
Okay, so we are using the Gordon method. And what is so special about the Gordon method is it's he introduces a concept for the first time, which is audiation. And audiation is not just inner hearing, is comprehending what you're doing when you hear music. So understanding the musical sounds and what is going on. For example, we started when we were in Pengalonga and we didn't have the violins yet. We starting by introducing songs in different tonalities, major, minor, also in different meters. So they have this vocabulary and they develop this understanding for the music. Okay, and this is what Gordon wants to develop. Audiating, understanding what we are listening to. And since we moved here to Tarsus, and they started playing the violin, the first step was more the physical aspect of the violin, how to hold the violin, how to hold the bow. But then we related again. Now we are playing what you think about this music. And then they could say, oh, it's major. Oh, it's in 3. We can move like in a dance, or more likely like a march. So this is the kind of method we are using here at Tarsus for music and for the violin. Everything comes together.
The Gordon method. Thank you. Thank you, Katerina. Natalia, thank you for waiting so patiently.
Yes, of course.
I know you're keen to get in. So tell me this.
Yes.
What does a typical violin class look like?
Oh, okay. So the violin lesson, it's very, we have a lot of fun, but also we have a lot of discipline because it's very physical. Violin is very physical and very emotional too. So we got the students get in the class, they already line up to pick up the violins, and they already know where to go because we've done it so many times, and music is about also repetition, right? So and then we do a little bit of warm up with our bow exercises. And then once that the skeleton, it's, a bit more, used to the position, remembers right away the position of the violin and position of the bow. And then we start doing some E string, A string, D string, and G string. They hear this plenty of times so they can learn where is which string on violin. Then afterwards, we do our melodies, right? The easiest one, and now we're doing also with our fingers. There's a lot of, how do I call it, fine motor skills in the violin that they developed and is necessary. And after we do all these little things with them, we ask them about, is this melody in minor, major, what is in 2, is in 3, what do you think? And they recognize the notes, on the musical stand that we put right in front of them. And so they're eager to answer because they already know, they're learning. So afterwards, we do the melodies once again, and they're very focused because you need to focus. You can't play the violin like that. You need to be very focused, looking at your strings, looking at the violin, and they learn discipline, and they learn how to overcome problems. And because it's about repetition and discipline in a very kind way and also very playful way, they don't even feel like or observe. I mean, they don't even know that they're doing a repetition thing and discipline. So when they get frustrated, believe me, they do get frustrated sometimes because I cannot do this. And then we go over again. And once they get it, oh my God, it's just, a spotlight over there. So it's a lot of that in our class. And then they're very thrilled and very happy to be in our violin class because they achieve so much.
I didn't know that there was so much physical discipline in your classes. Our parents might be alarmed to hear that, especially when you said it was painful. Did you say painful or plainful? I'm sure you only strike them with the cardboard violins. Okay, we're going to move on. Katerina, this is your chance. Tell me, between the two of you, who is a bigger diva?
I'm not a diva. I think I'm not a diva. And that's why I feel so good playing the viola. The viola is in the middle between the violins and the cello. We just enjoy the music. Sometimes we have some melodies. Most of the times we only have accompaniments, but we are in the middle of the music. So a viola player usually is not a diva. And I feel like a viola player.
Okay, so I guess that means Natalia is the diva.
Well, she plays the second violin.
Right, of course. I think that was a shot, but I'm not sure. Okay, last question.
It's getting ugly in there, Keith.
I'm going to turn it over.
It's getting ugly in there. You better referee.
No, they're good friends. Okay, last question. I already pre-warned you that this question was coming. How does violin make students smarter?
Oh. Who is going to answer?
Let them answer.
Okay, Natalia.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's in so many ways. I would like to refer to presentations because there's so much involved in it. So it's not just about playing the string. No, it's about thinking what you're doing, coordination, right? But also when you don't know what to do, or you just panic right there with the violin. We did have some occasions like that the student just didn't know what to do. But then they heard about the presentation, and then they get, their eyes light up, and then there's a preparation in there that you have to overcome your fears. You have to overcome to not get right on top of the line. You have to work together. So it's a lot of emotional smartness in there and learning. And the most beautiful thing that I think that if you're emotionally smart, you are smart at all, right? With your intelligence, with math, with chess, right? With geography. If you understand that you can solve the problem of your fearness emotionally, you just have it all. So that's what we learn as well here. And after the presentations, when the students they achieve that, oh, this is not that hard, and it's beautiful to be, in front of an audience and playing, it's just the best of the moments for us as teachers, So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it was a brilliant answer, and thank you. And we're going to turn over to Amy to see if we have some audience questions.
Keith, first, Katerina had something to add to that last question.
Yes, I would like to add something. It's not just being smarter. I think as I was listening to Helen and to John, I realized there are many common there is much in common with chess and with coding, the resilience and having to repeat and to think and to, this is, I think, when I look at my students, I think this is the most important thing, one of the most important things I bring them. The resilience and the practice and the repetition. And at the end, I must say, I don't like to grade students, but I want to take them to let them perform, because this is the result, the end result, where you can show what you learned, and also when after that you feel proud of everything you learn in the instrument. So for me, that's a very important part of learning an instrument, the violin in this case.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Natalia and Katerina.
And John will start out with our questions here at the end. You know, Katerina used the word proud, and when we saw the second grade class perform, they were the first class to perform as a group together at an October assembly. So, you know, we'd only been in school a hot minute when that second grade class was asked to perform. They amazingly did 3 numbers, which I think shocked all of us, that Natalia and Katerina were able to prepare them in that short amount of time. And I remember seeing Miss Rizzuto and Mrs. Zickerman, the second grade teachers, sitting in the front rows with their phones recording and flashes going off and smiling like proud mothers, which they felt like in seeing our students do that. And it's really been such an amazing thing to watch. So, and same goes with, you know, to John and Helen as well. We have a question. What level of mastery will the students have of these specials if they go through TASIS? So Keith, I don't know if you want to answer that.
Well, I'll let each of the teachers answer on their own, but I want to remind folks that, again, this is about building cognition and better brains for young people, and we're not here to produce concert level violinists. Many of our students will continue with private practice, I'm sure, or many may switch to different musical instruments. And probably, obviously, I'm sure we have a chess prodigy in the audience, but that's not the point. Kids can play and enjoy chess as a game, and then we will be hosting competitive chess in future years, and Helen has a plan for that. And same with John for coding, although I would say probably by the time students finish school here, they're going to be some pretty strong coders and robotic students. But I'll turn that over to our actual experts.
All right, we'll start with John then. Thank you, John.
Yeah, sure. I mean, by the time the student goes through the program at TASIS, they'll have a really good foundation of coding. Will they be professional level programmers? Not most of them, and that's not really the goal. They'll have the skills and the foundation that they can become a professional programmer, and certainly I've worked with students who had programs that they were ready to start getting published, and by the time they left school. And that's where they could go. But all of them will have the foundations and the skills that they can take as far as they want.
Thank you, John. And we will have Helen follow you to answer that same question related to chess. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Well, very similarly, really, I'm not going to repeat what he said because there is a lot that's in common. It's going to depend on the level that each student wants to take the game to. Every student, once they've been through a few years of chess at TASIS, will be a very competent, confident, and disciplined chess player. Where they take that is up to them. For many of them, it will be a joy, a pleasure that takes them through their life. They'll be teaching their own children, perhaps their own grandchildren. There will be some who want to be competitive, and they will get into inter-school chess competitions. Unfortunately, of course, this year, tournament play is out of the question for us, but by next year, we lost. Next year, I lost. sound.
I can hear you, Helen.
Okay, sorry. By next year, hopefully we'll be able to bring in some competition into the school chess. We're not even able to let children from different grade levels play against each other at the moment, so it's a bit sad that is being quelled, but I don't see that lasting very long. And so those competitive players will have the opportunity to play much more extensively, competitively as they wish.
Thank you, Helen. And Natalia, I'm going to ask you to field that from the perspective of the Violin program, but then after I would like Katerina to answer and speak about the extra opportunities that students have, such as after school with the two of you. So first, if you'll answer this question, Natalia, thank you. Oh, Natalia, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I think mastering an instrument, it takes a long time. Yeah, so I think that's, as John said, that's not the goal. The goal is to persist, to learn how to persist, to learn how to be disciplined, right? To learn how to overcome problems, solving problems. I think that is the main goal. Now, if they want to master an instrument, you can do it over your lifetime. I have more than 40 years of violin, so I started very young. So, and I still have lots to learn on the violin. So it's something that you learn every single day of your life, basically.
Wonderful. And Katerina, would you please talk about opportunities that are available to our students who wish to spend more time with violin and with their instructors?
Yes, so here in school, we have, the school offers extracurricular instrumental lessons, and also singing. I think there is a singing teacher. And we have many teachers. It's me and Natalia, and also another external teacher, and there are many piano teachers also and guitar teachers. And I think if anyone is interested in another instrument, we can bring a teacher in, and yeah, it would be great. Well, I'm thinking how it was in my school. We had a small orchestra and it was so good to have a school orchestra. Maybe one day we can have something like that here. Why not? A real orchestra.
And I think our viewers, if they don't know already, one of the after-school activities that's offered is violin support.
Yes.
For different classes. And so if students want to spend some extra time, want some extra instruction, that's available to them.
Yes, also, yeah, after school, yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to read a few comments we have because we are getting close to time, and Keith needs have an opportunity at the end of the webinar. But one parent wrote, "Can we have Mr. Iglar on every week?" Fantastic talk, and I think Millie, who's in pre-kindergarten, by the way, is already benefiting from his tutoring. And then he followed that up with, and his wife too, what a team. I can't wait for Millie to start working with her. I'm trying to teach her some of the basics, and I'm already running out of steam. I love the idea of chess exercises. So lots of shout outs and thank yous. I shouldn't say this, but there are too many to share all together now, but look forward to sharing with all of our presenters tonight. And finally, one viewer writes, "I appreciate these answers, and I love knowing that they get a taste of these wide range of skills and getting their toes wet in each." So well said. And now, John, if you'll send it over to Keith, please. And I always forget to thank John Searles, our wonderful producer. So thank you, John. And Keith, over to you. Keith, you're muted.
Okay, that's better. That was probably Natalia that did that. I want to thank John and Helen Katerina and Natalia, for joining us this evening. You were splendid as always. I think people can see that this is part of our curriculum. These programs are embedded for a reason. They're not novelty programs. They are unique, but we have a purpose for each of these programs. And so I want to thank the folks that teach them and teach your kids, and they're terrific. And it sounds like I'm off the hook, Amy. It's going to be Coffee with John for the next few months by the sounds of it. So thank you, David and Keshkai, for that. I'll pay you later. Seriously, I want to talk about something this evening for the last few minutes. We'd like to have a lot of fun on the show and try to keep it light. I'm going to say a few things that are probably less light than usual. So let me launch in. We all know that the pandemic has been hell on people, on adults, on kids, on grandparents, even pets. And we are all worried about the impact of this interruption in our existence. And even more so, the impact on our children. We talk about them falling behind, talk about the loss of learning. And of course, as conscientious parents, that's a natural reaction to this unprecedented global catastrophe. On the other hand, I might suggest we take a moment to count our blessings, because we are blessed. First of all, we're still alive. Most of us have not been seriously ill. We have held classes every day since we opened the school, albeit last month online. And more than that, all of us enjoy a lifestyle among the top 30% of the entire world, including our teachers. And many of us are in the top 1% to 2% of income earners in the world. We have a place to live, we have fresh food, clean water, and generally healthy children, and wine. So, why are we all so concerned and anxious? Well, I've been in your shoes for more than 26 years, and as parents, we worry about whether our children are learning what they need to learn, and whether this downtime, screen time, and video gaming will ruin their eyes, their attention spans, or their cognitive abilities. We so much want the very best for them. We worry that their lack of physical activity and socialization will do irreparable harm, or they'll get fat, or they'll develop bad habits, or become socially inept. For example, we all know for the span of human existence, and for 50,000 years or so, our ancestors chased their dinner and their foes and ate what they caught. Yes, including sometimes their foes. Movement is what the human body is made for. If you believe in evolution, then you'll know that some millennia ago, humanoids made the move from walking on all fours and living in trees to savanna-dwelling creatures who ran their prey to death. In fact, per body weight, humans have the largest butts and thighs, and I'm not getting personal with anyone, which enables us to run tens of kilometers at a time and for hours without stopping. I mean, not me, but people that are really fit. Other animals may be faster, but none can outrun a band of merry Neanderthals hunting as a team. Which brings up another point of worry for parents. Teams. We are social creatures whose success through the evolutionary chain, our reason for being the dominant species, perhaps too dominant, is our ability to communicate and work as a team. Few inventions in our history were the work of one person, and today communication and teamwork are considered to be most essential to the success of our children. Let us not deny that the pandemic has been hard on the mental health of most of us, and particularly on children. Ignoring the increased rates of domestic abuse, especially among less affluent families, kids are suffering for the exact reasons I mentioned above. A lack of exercise, a lack of socialization, too much screen time, and importantly, a lack of time on this planet. A lack of time on this planet to comprehend that this will be a short-lived experience compared to the course of their lifetime. And so, of course, we are naturally concerned. We haven't been through something like this before. However, tonight, I'm going to encourage you to look at it from a different perspective. As a father of a 26 and a 22-year-old, as well as someone who's worked with children, adolescents, and adults, I've seen many things in my lifetime. Things that surprised me about how resilient children are. I've seen children who came from compromised family circumstances blossom and thrive as adults. I've seen children from well-to-do families with every support imaginable spiral into depression and despair. I've seen children who were at first overweight and one with a very significant lung disease become sport stars and fitness enthusiasts. I've seen average math students find their way through study and resilience into medical school and thrive as doctors. In other cases, I've seen some of the brightest minds in a school waste all of their talent and become lawyers. Winston Churchill's father was mostly absent in his life until he died when Winston was young. Winston was sent off to boarding school at age 7 and bullied for his lisp, and as he described it, flogging was part of the curriculum. During his time at school, he was generally considered to be a failure. Psychologists have since speculated that he suffered from dyslexia and/or ADHD, and his schoolmaster said Winston would never amount to anything, which just goes to show you what schoolmasters know. So sometimes hardship makes you a bit tougher, a bit stronger, and a bit more accepting of the fact that life is difficult. It also reminds me, in my case, sometimes one good parent is all you really need to feel loved, supported, and important in this world. And I know there are parents out there right now looking at one another thinking, he's talking about me. And therefore, let me attempt to assure you that children have indeed fallen behind. Yes, they have. But behind what, I ask? Behind their peers? I doubt it. Most of the world is in this with us. Behind their grade level expectations? Possibly. However, grades and grade levels are social constructs. Nobody expects children to grow at the same rate. In this school, we have students 30 centimeters taller than others in their age groups. We know, for example, that girls mature faster than boys in almost every regard. However, men generally catch up by the time they're 60. So, please, as you attempt to assess your own concerns about the current 6 weeks out of class, please remember, kids are more resilient than we credit them for. They have the greatest capacity of any of us to grow quickly and rebound. Research shows that children from affluent families who attend good schools have a 30 million word advantage over students who do not. That's 30 million words. I've got the book to prove it. So, even without school, your children, because of who you are, because of the way you speak, the vacations you take, the company you keep, not to mention their peer group at school, your children have a tremendous advantage in this world. Your children are most likely to go on and be successful at college, and then again, successful in their professional lives. They will probably live longer as well. They will be delayed slightly, perhaps, in achieving some of these things, but perhaps so will everyone else in their generation. I often say when you retire, you don't look back at your life and think, if only I'd graduated from high school 1 year earlier. Plus, your children have doting parents who refuse to give up on them, and a school in Tassus that will do everything in our power to make sure they recover, and more than that, make sure they thrive in their school experience. So I say to you, try to worry less, relax, hug your children, and be thankful for all the advantages you've already given them. Good night. See you again next week. Stay safe. And don't forget tomorrow at noon to tune into our school assembly where we will have the mascot reveal. That's right. Thank you, Natalia. All right. Take care, all. See you again soon.